What's up, folks? Welcome to 4th and 16 Sports. I'm your host, Ellis Tolbert. We're coming to you live to talk college football for 1 hour straight here live in Greenville, South Carolina from Pronk Studios. I got my main man, Faxon Childress, in the back. He's doing the controls for me. Folks, we got a great show. It is episode 10. So that means, of course, we haven't had 10 straight weeks, but you guys have been with me for 10 weeks, so I really appreciate you. Thank you for listening and joining in the conversation. I appreciate you guys wholeheartedly, and I speak for Faxon as well and everybody here at the Pronk Studio team. Thank you so much. Of course, we are live streaming to you from multiple places tonight. We got you coming in at 4th and 16 Sports page. We're coming in over on WCCP, the Roars page, and Seldom Used Reserved. I'm also over on Twitter, Periscope, but just want to let you guys know that if you're watching on Twitter or Periscope, I cannot interact with your comments. You can only just watch it there. Again, feel free to join the comment section. I need you guys to do me a favor. We're trying to get to 1,000 likes on the page. We're like 800 or something right now. Just share the page if you enjoyed the show. Give us a like. Tell your friends and family, your sons, whoever, anybody who likes football to join the page. And, of course, if you're new here, my name is Ellis Tolbert. We've been running college football sports here for 10, 12 weeks plus. And we're going to be doing it all week, every week at 7 o'clock. So join us. Again, if you're watching from, WCCP or Seldom Used Reserve, let us know where you're watching from and your name. We want to know who you guys are. Join in the conversation. It'll be fun. Of course, we got a great show for you all tonight. I mean, on my 10th episode, I get a blessing. Clemson just signed Barrett Carter, number 1 inside linebacker from Suwanee, Georgia. Played at North Gwinnett High School. He has just signed with the Clemson Tigers literally like 10 minutes ago. So we're going to be talking about that in depth. We're also going to be talking about Taulia Tagovailoa, the brother of Tua, who transferred from Alabama to Maryland, and what kind of impact that can have. And to end the show out, we'll do what we did last week. We talked about the ACC projections for 2020. We're going to do that for the Pac-12. Maybe they'll get to play this year if some of those restrictions come up for their states, but we'll get into that. Again, thank you guys for watching, and we're going to get into it. All right, so Barrett Carter, inside linebacker, no Gwyn. He played at Suwanee. Look, guys, this dude is legit. I mean, some places look at him as a 4-star. I think he's borderline 5-star. Of course, he is the number 1 inside linebacker. He is like a shorter Von Miller. All right, so he's about 6'1", teetering 6'2", about 220 pounds. By the time he gets to Clemson, he's probably going to be 240, 250. And this guy can play pretty much inside and outside. He's actually also really good at rushing the passer. If you watched any of his tape, you see that he's really good. He's really good with flexibility, getting in his hands. Something that you really want to see with middle linebackers, inside linebackers, is being able to get low and get through all the traffic and find the ball. And he's able to do that a lot. My good friend here, Faxon Childress, actually knows the kid. He went to high school with him. Faxon, tell him what you know about him and some of what you've seen. Of course, he is the teammate of some other players that have just signed with Clemson. So at this point, we're taking over.
Yeah, I mean, as someone that attended North Gwinnett High School, I do know Barrett and Jordan Hancock, both recent commits for Clemson. And Barrett, both of these guys that committed, they're the real deal. Barrett is, I think that I saw that Barrett's commitment boosted Clemson up to the number 3 class for 2021. So Clemson is going to have another top 5 class in 2021 if everything stays on track. And Barrett is the real deal. The guy can do everything from a linebacker position. He can also rush the passer. There's really not a lot he can't do on the defensive side of the ball. Great signing for Clemson.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that. Boosted Clemson back up to the number 3 spot in recruiting. And, for those who are watching who are not Clemson fans, who may not be Clemson fans, it's been interesting to see this happen because Clemson, was dropped down. Of course, Ohio State has a ridiculous class. You have Tennessee at 2, strangely. And then you have North Carolina just above Clemson. But now Clemson has jumped. And it's because I talked about this before when we talked about recruiting, especially with the Will Shipley thing. You have to look at average number of stars. So Clemson only has 11 signings now. Compared to 18, 19, 20, some of these other schools. But Clemson's average rating per player is through the roof, and Barrett just adds to that. He's one of those guys, again, that he has really good flexibility, so Clemson can be able to use him in multiple spots. Now, he was being rumored to go to places like Ohio State and Notre Dame and all these crazy schools like that. So I mean, the kid has talent, and everybody wanted him. And he comes from a high school in Georgia that's known for doing it right. This school is one of the most competitive schools in the state. So you're getting a quality player. And one of the good things I like about it too is when I think about a guy like that coming to a school when Clemson has crazy depth at linebacker for the future. You got to think, not including the upperclassmen like Jamie Skalski or anything like that. You got Mike Jones Jr., Balin Spector, Keith McGuire, Vontae Bentley, Trent Simpson, 5-star we just picked up this past cycle in 2019, Sergio Allen. And then you have Jeremiah Trotter also coming in, 5-star linebacker coming in 2021. This guy, I mean, he's going to fit right in with all those guys. And I think if he's able to come in and develop properly, he's going to be one of those guys that can, shoot for playing time very, very early. I just want to see, there's one thing though, I want to see him cover a little bit more. If you look at all his highlights film, you see him just rocking guys left and right, just putting them to sleep, putting them in a casket. But he's not quite, they don't show a whole lot of coverage. And if you're going to play outside at Clemson, that's going to be something that's critical. You could be matched up. And Clemson's they want to go to these hybrid guys. We saw what happened in Kendall Joseph. You saw what happened with Dorian O'Daniel. Saw what happened with Isaiah Simmons, ending up being the number 8 overall pick in the draft this year. Clemson's starting to trend towards that hybrid guy, and I think this guy can fit in. What do you think, Faxon?
Yeah, I mean, the good thing about Carter is that he's extremely athletic. When you watch him on tape, it's just immediately you can tell that he's going to be one of the best, if not the best, athletes on the field. So the good thing is that he might struggle in coverage, even though the North Gwinnett High School scheme doesn't really require him to be in coverage, but he has the athletic tools to where he can definitely become a good coverage player. So I think that his versatility will do the Clemson defense well. And I agree with you on the point where you said that he's got the chance to get playing time early. I really do think that he's going to get playing time early.
Yeah, and again, the thing that I always look at when you look at some of these guys' write-ups for recruits. I mean, you see this for all these other schools. You saw it for Chase Young when he came in, Ohio State, Okuda. You see it for a lot of these guys, Trevor Lawrence. Before they even get there, some of the write-ups have these guys as NFL quality talent in the future, and he has that. They're talking about this guy if he develops correctly, like I talk about, puts on the right weight, stays healthy. This guy could be a draft pick in the future, and people really overlook draft pick stuff. A lot of times you just think, take it for granted just because you're a player, you're going to get drafted. That's not the case. So, of course, he has to pan out. But, folks, I am, super excited about this. I know you are, too, if you're a Clemson fan. If you're a fan of other fan bases, you're probably looking at this going, whatever. But everybody has their day, and Clemson's day is today. So
they're probably, if you're a fan of another team, you're probably like, "Wow, Clemson gets another 5-star."
Another 5-star.
These guys
wow.
These guys are too greedy.
Hey, and it's fine though. I mean, we just missed out on a safety, Kari G going to LSU. I mean, he's another one of those guys that was really, really talented safety. We missed out on him. It happens, folks.
And
sometimes
we missed out on
lose
Flo
recruits.
going to Oregon as well. Clemson's had their fair share of misses where people thought these guys are shoo-ins to attend Clemson, and they end up bluffing and going somewhere else. So I mean, it happens to everyone.
Perfect example is the fact that you had Corey Foreman decommit from Clemson. He was the number 1 overall player in 2021. Now he's kind of wavering on that. I mean, we don't know what the deal is with that. He might still sign with Clemson. I don't know, but so while we're having fun with that, we've also had our trials and tribulations of guys, kind of flaking out. So it is what it is. I'm just really, really stoked on this particular guy coming in because I know he wants to be all in. And like you said, he has a teammate coming in who's also a very highly rated player. Tell the folks a little bit more about him, about Jordan.
Oh yeah, Jordan Hancock, also out of North Gwinnett High School, just defensive back, can play cornerback, safety, and as someone who knows him personally, one of the best basketball players that I've ever seen step on a court. He could very easily play on Clemson's basketball team, in my opinion, as well. This guy's he's a world-class athlete, and I would assume he's going to play more corner at Clemson, as you referenced earlier, due to the safety depth. But this guy's got potential to be the heir apparent to DeAndre Kendrick at D-back.
Well, you got to think, too, the versatility of being able to play both corner and safety.
It's so valuable. It's so valuable because especially if you know the schemes at both positions, you're going to be on the field 90% of the game. He's gonna be a guy that comes in, and I'm expecting him to play some his freshman year as well, just because of how Clemson does it with their defensive substitutions. So I'm really excited to see how these two recruits pan out for the Tigers, and I think that these are two huge gets that these kids are going to be national champions one day.
Yeah, that's true. And Dabo's and the rest of the crew, if you talk to anybody in the Clemson camp right now, they're already saying that this 2021 class is going to be legendary. That tells you a lot, again, because they only have 11 players, comparatively speaking, to some of like the other schools, 18, 19, 20 recruits. Clemson is getting, this reminds me almost of that 2017 class, where they're not getting a whole lot of people because they don't have the numbers at the moment, but the players that they are getting are just phenomenal. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm super happy to have Barrett Carter on the squad. Looking forward to have him joining the Clemson Tigers. And folks, if you got any questions about that, if you've watched this film, I'm just telling you right now, go look at his film. It's hot right now. Of course, he just signed, so everybody's going to be on him. Go look at his film. If you're not quite sold on the kid yet, or you don't know anything about him yet, or you might think, oh, he's a 4-star, we're looking at 4 or 5 stars, go check his film out. I mean, this guy is a monster, and he's rocking people left and right. So again, I can't really. It just speaks to the job and this guy was personally recruited by Brent Venables. Brent Venables was the lead recruiter for him. And Brent Venables is a linebacker coach by trade. He was a linebacker at Kansas State. He knows what he's doing. So he knows how to go find these guys. So I trust any linebacker that he goes and recruits. And I'm sorry I didn't mention Brighton Constantine in that list too. We're still hoping that he can recover and get healthy. I hope to see that kid on the field sometime in the future too. But I'm just telling you right now, it's looking really, really good for the Clemson Tigers. We're going to pivot over to some things happening in the transfer portal. Of course, this was big news when it first hit. Taulia Tagovailoa, brother of Tua Tagovailoa, he decided to leave Alabama. And a lot of people were like, maybe that's the writing on the wall. Of course, he would have been in a competition with Mac Jones, the guy who is apparently the heir apparent to Tua. And then, you have some other really talented players. Bryce Young, the number one quarterback, depends on who you're looking. It's either DJ over at Clemson or Bryce, the number one quarterback in 2019. He's apparently possibly going to be the guy. And then you have Paul Tyson. He's still there. I mean, it looks like it was the writing was on the wall, but everybody was wondering, where is Taulia going to go? Is he going to go somewhere else? Is he going to stay over after all, or what is he going to do? And he ends up going to Maryland, and that made a lot of people scratch their heads. Well, folks, we're here to tell you a little bit why and what he could benefit from going to Maryland. Now, first and foremost, I want to say this. He is not Tua. So a lot of people are going, oh, Maryland's below him. Why is he going to Maryland? He's not Tua. We don't know much about him, actually, at all. Besides, he's right-handed version of him. He's a little bit shorter, 5'11", maybe a 195. And he's only attempted 12 passes in his career, 9 completions, 100 yards, and 1 touchdown. And that came against, I think it was Western Carolina, Southern Miss, and Arkansas. 3 teams that were not very good. So we don't really know much about him. So I think going there would help him. It's not below him to go to Maryland. Second of all, he's going to be joining Mike Locksley, the guy who made his brother look like the second coming of Jesus in the 2018 season before they faced the Clemson Tigers. But, it's one of those deals where I think that's a good move for him. What do you think about that, Faxon?
Yeah, I don't really know what to expect out of Tagovailoa. Sorry, butchered that name a little bit.
It's hard, man.
I mean, if he can replicate even half of what his brother did in his college career, Maryland's got a good QB for the forthcoming years.
Yeah. I mean, you got to think about it, too. Again, Mike Locksley is known for his innovative style with offense. Now, he's had terrible stints as a head coach at other places, and it looked like Maryland was on a roll last year. Of course, they were blowing out Syracuse. They scored like 70 points on them. Everybody thought that Maryland's going to be this crazy team. And then they ended up just being exactly what everybody thought they were, just a bottom of the pack Big Ten team now. But I think
he's going to have Raheem Jarrett to throw the ball to.
Yeah, that's right.
Raheem Jarrett, 5-star wide receiver. Maryland's got some hope in a program that seemed dead just a few years ago.
And they've got a pretty good defense. Of course, if you're a Clemson fan, they still have Shaq Smith playing that buck end position. I mean, as long as people understand that teams do rebuild, things are fine. I don't think the expectation in Maryland is for them to win a national championship, much less even win their division. They're in division with Michigan and Ohio State, so that's kind of difficult. And now you have some other schools rising up in that side too. It's kind of hard to really get past it. But if you're looking at him going forward, if he's anything like his brother in the future, and he has that same kind of tutelage from a guy like Mike Locksley, I think that there's a chance he could end up being one of those quarterbacks we talk about. Now, I don't think he's going to be anywhere near Tua. I think Tua had the right recipe to be what he was. And you got to think about it. He had three, potentially in the future, 4 first-round receivers.
Yeah, Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, elite
think about it, last
offensive
year.
line. I mean,
It's crazy to think about.
Jedrick Wills was drafted too. Like this, he had all the right players in position and tight ends. O.J. Howard.
That's right. And think about it, the year before that too. I mean, even this year, I mean, of course they weren't as strong as they were. There was a lot of defensive injuries. But I think if Tua was 100% healthy this year, and the defense didn't have as many injuries that they had, especially going into LSU, that could have been a different game. In fact, Alabama was driving to score immediately on LSU like it was nothing. And then Tua had that crazy little whoop, and he forgot to hold on to the ball. That changed the game. If their defense was a little bit better, I think that could have been a little bit different. But I'm just thinking about the move for Taulia, what it means for him personally. Of course, leaving Alabama, somewhere that he had his brother was there. There was a lot of speculation that he might even transfer to Miami because they want something about his family wanted to be close to his brother. Now, of course, that didn't pan out, obviously. But like I said, the implication. Now, it's not like he's going to go to Maryland and immediately start. Folks, they still have quarterbacks at Maryland. You still have Josh Jackson, the transfer from Virginia Tech, who is a presumed starter there. You look at some other guys here. You still got Tyrell Pigrome, who was the starter in 2018 and was killing it. I mean, they were putting numbers up on Ohio State until he got hurt in the 11th game of the season. And then they had to have Max Bortenschlager come in. Nobody knows who that is. They have Lance Legendre, a guy who was really highly recruited. He was supposed to go to Florida State, but then Willie Taggart did Willie Taggart things, and he ended up going to Maryland where he redshirted. So they have quarterbacks there. It's not like he's going to walk in and be a starter. But the good thing is he has youth on his side. He was a true freshman last year. So he's going to have 3 years. Actually, he redshirted. So he's going to have 4 more years to go and play if he chooses to. And under a guy like Mike Locksley, so much as Mike Locksley keeps his job, I think that might work out pretty well for him. What do you think, man?
Yeah, I think there's a chance that Maryland could be a very good team in the next coming years. I mean, you said their defense is pretty solid. They've got weapons on offense for Taulia, and if he can even just be a serviceable QB to throw those weapons and the O-line can hold up, they could be a team that could win 9 or 10 games when looking like maybe a year or two down the line. I really don't think that's outlandish at all. They're not going to contend, but
yeah. And the thing is, no one expects them to go beat Michigan and Ohio State. No one expects that. But you can still have a respectable season, even if you just lost those 2 games. I mean, you got to think there's 12 games in the season, and they can win up to 8 or 9 in the future, and it all depends on having a good quarterback. So we're going to be talking about the Pac-12 projections. We talked about this for the ACC. We're going to do it for all the Power 5 conferences coming up in the next few weeks. But one of my biggest things when I look for a team and their future success is, what do you have at quarterback? Do you return somebody, or do you just bring in somebody that's going to be potentially a game breaker for you in the future? I think this qualifies as one of those deals. Now, again, 12 passes in his career against some of the worst teams you could ever think of to go up against Alabama, that doesn't really tell me a lot. But as long as he goes and he does well. Now, and that was that caveat. I think that changes the narrative too, because folks who follow recruiting, Maryland also is in the running in the top 3 for Caleb Williams, another DC guy, the number 1 quarterback for 2021, 5-star player, just ridiculous. Of course, Clemson wanted him, but he dropped us out. So now it's LSU, Maryland, and Oklahoma. With bringing in a guy like Taulia Tagovailoa, that's a really hard name, first and foremost. Let's go ahead and say that. It's not like Clemson fans get any breaks now, because we have DJ Uiagalelei, and Tyson Pumachan, who predecessed him. So it's kind of hard, but this pretty much all but assures that they're not going to get Caleb Williams in D.C. in Maryland. What do you think about that? Would you agree with that? I think it's Oklahoma now.
Yeah, I've said the entire recruiting process for Caleb Williams that I thought he was going to go to Oklahoma to be their next kind of QB after Spencer Rattler inevitably moves on.
Yeah.
And I think that Rattler will probably be good this year, great the next year, and go to the NFL after his junior year. And then you see sophomore year Caleb Williams take over. That seems like the most likely scenario. But I do think that this Tagovailoa commitment to Maryland pretty much all but assures that Caleb Williams is on his way to be a Sooner.
Yeah, pretty much. And, again, hats off to him. I will say that as we've learned, I think every fan base has learned this, that the transfer portal isn't always your friend. Sometimes you think the grass is greener on the other side. And this is just a life lesson. We all know this. I mean, sometimes you think the grass is greener on the other side. Sometimes it is. You look at a guy like Baker. You look at a guy like Kyler. Sometimes the grass is greener. But just don't expect to go into Maryland and just everything is just beautiful. I mean, there's a chance that he could have really shined and showed out and gotten the starting position at Alabama. Again, I'm not sold on Mac Jones being able to keep off Bryce Young. So maybe there's more to it than we see. I'm not going to speculate. Again, best wishes to the kid, and hopefully he works it out. I think that could be a knockout thing in the future if he's anything like his brother. Maryland has been a dumpster fire at quarterback for a good 8 years now, maybe even longer. They can really stand to have a guy that's potentially, and that's a building block. Again, Lance Lejeune was a 4-star guy, highly rated guy. Maybe there's a little turning of the tide there for them. Get that, turning of the tide? That was terrible. Shoot me.
That was not your best work.
That was not the best one. That ain't it, Chief. All right, so we're going to move away from that, though, and we're going to talk about the thing that's going to take the longest part of this segment, and we're going to be talking about Pac-12 predictions. And look, we've talked about our non-affinity for the Pac-12 a lot. I think the Pac-12 is probably the second worst conference. And it's not because the teams aren't good. It's because they vulture each other. And you'll see this when we're doing our list. Usually there's always a team that's in or two that's in position to get into the playoffs, and they drop the ball to one of the lower teams. And it happens every single year. So we're going to talk about that and get into it too. Again, some of the things that I look at when you're looking for projections for a season, it doesn't matter what you're looking at. I like to look at quarterback. What do you have at quarterback? I already mentioned that. I like to look at your O-line and your D-line. Are they stout? Do you have a lot of guys returning? Or do you just have a lot of young talent that's coming in that's really, really good? I like to look at, your head coaching situation. What's your coach like? Is he going to be one of those guys who's going to get fired in the next year? And then lastly, I always talk about this, the Cinderella and the chaos situation. There's always going to be a Cinderella team, LSU. There's always going to be a team that creates chaos. Arizona State to Oregon last year, they ended up beating them in a game that they shouldn't have beat them, and that did absolutely cost Oregon a chance to get into the playoffs. So let's go ahead and get into it. We're going to start with the Pac-12 North. The Pac-12 likes to do theirs north and south. So we're going to go through those in order. Number one, I've got Oregon. Just because I think Oregon in the Pac-12, and you're probably going to disagree with me, but I think they have the most stable coach, Mario Cristobal. I think they have probably the best team depth. They have a revamped defense, believe it or not. Their defense, at one point, Oregon was like the team that was scoring 100 on everybody, but was also giving up 101, kind of like Oklahoma. But, now their defense has gotten better. They've gotten a couple 5-stars in a lot of different places. 2 5-star linebackers, Noah Sewell and Justin Flo. They could be in the playoffs. I've got them beating everybody in the conference. Now, Pac-12, they play 9-game conferences. Of course, we talked about other conferences. The most other conferences play 9-game conference games. We in the ACC don't. Same with the SEC. So they almost play everybody, and they only have 3 out-of-conference games. So let's go ahead and get into it. I've got their wins, everybody in the Pac-12. They're going to beat everybody in the Pac-12, in my opinion. Their only loss is a home loss to Ohio State in game 1, just because I believe Ohio State is probably going to be one of the top 2 teams in the country. I've got them ending the season at 9-0 in the conference, 12-1 on the season. What do you think, Faxon?
We're actually differing a lot here. I have Oregon sitting at 9-3 and 7-2 in the conference.
Okay.
And a big reason for that, and they do have Mario Cristobal, defense, O-line. They're a good team in the trenches. I don't trust the quarterback play. I will never trust a team going into the season that does not have a defined starter at the quarterback position. And I will stick to that. Though they do have C.J. Verdell, good offensive line, decent defense. I can't trust Oregon. I have them at 9-3, 7-2 in the conference, and I do not have them winning the Pac-12 North.
Ooh.
I have their losses to Ohio State, Cal, and Southern California.
Ooh, so this obviously means you have Cal
At the number 1 spot,
At the number 1 spot.
I have the California Golden Bears
Okay,
at 10-2 overall, 7-2 in the conference. Those 2 losses being to Southern Cal and Arizona State. And let me just give some of the ideology behind this, all right?
Okay.
They returned the most starters in the conference on both sides of the ball.
That's true.
They've improved every single year under Justin Wilcox, going
Yes.
8-5 last year. They closed their season winning 4 in a row.
Okay.
Chase Garbers, 14 TDs to 3 interceptions
Get
last
this guy
year.
out of here, man.
Chase Garbers, the breakout year is coming for Chase Garbers. He was slinging the ball all over the yard last year at the end of the year, and you will see improvement from Chase Garbers, and Cal will win the Pac-12 North.
I want to, we talk about this too, and I think it's important. We talked about Chase returning quarterbacks. I even said that. And that's actually, if I'm going to make the pitch for Oregon, that would be a draw. They have 2 drawbacks. I'm going to go into this a little bit deeper. So you had Justin Herbert, obviously a top 10 quarterback in the NFL draft this year. And he had been a starter for 4 years. Now you have Tyler Shuff, Cale Millen. You have maybe Anthony Brown transfer from Boston College. Is probably going to ride the pine. Who knows? So it is a little bit of an issue, although Tyler Shuff has been christened as the next guy. Everybody's saying Tyler Shuff is going to be that dude. Even, teammates, Cristobal, even Justin Herbert signed off on him. So we'll see. I tend to think that most Oregon quarterbacks too, outside of Dakota Prukop, all of them have been somewhat successful. Winning 10, 11 games, pretty much all of them. So I have to give them that. The one thing I will say that I kind of don't like is that their defensive line is going to be solid. Folks, one of the better D-lines in the country. Their offensive line was in my opinion, the best offensive line last year. If you just look at all the guys that they had drafted, Lemieux at center, they had some really, really crazy guys. 4 of those guys are in the NFL right now, and early draft picks. You only have 1 guy left from that, and his name is Penei Sewell. He's a left tackle. He is the consensus best left tackle in college football at this point. I still think Jackson Carman has something to say about that. But, you have these guys, so I'm kind of taking myself. Maybe I'm seeing the light a little bit with you and your Cal Golden Bears, man.
Listen, I know you're not a big believer in Chase Garbers, but
I can't do it, man.
I really do think he's going to have a great year this year. When you look at his game log, he really played 1 bad game last year, and that was when he got hurt against USC. And I do have USC beating them as well. So I really just see Cal's defense is going to be really solid. They're experienced. You've seen improvement after every year. And last year, they went 8-5 and they had a lot of games that they could have won. They left a lot of opportunities on the table, particularly that game against Arizona State. That game, that they definitely should have won that game.
Yes!
So I think this year is the year that they break out and they finally win those games. And when you also look at their schedule, a lot of their tough games are favorable to them because they're at home.
Yeah,
They play
I completely
Utah, they play UW, and they play Oregon all at home.
I completely agree with that, man.
So I feel like their schedule is super favorable. Their experience is going to be great. And I think that if Chase Garbers takes that next step, you could see the Cal Golden Bears on top of the Pac-12 at the end of the year.
I will say that if we're picking top 3 coaches in the Pac-12, I'm going Kyle Whittingham at Utah. I'm going Mario Cristobal and Justin Wilcox. Justin Wilcox has really proven
Justin
that.
Wilcox has taken that program out of the
He
gutter.
really has.
After he went from that post-Goff era, and he just lifted them up, and they've seen improvement every single year.
I will agree with that.
He's done a great job over there, and I think he's finally going to get rewarded with some great QB play this year.
I just don't. I can't I can't get on board with the Chase Garbers thing. Maybe he'll prove me wrong.
What's
this
your
year.
issue with
Hey,
him? I just want to know, like, what when you watch him play, what are like the glaring issues in his game that you see that don't make you a believer?
he absolutely has no read anticipation. I mean, he's actually probably slower at anticipating throws than Jacob Eason, except Jacob Eason had a rocket and could get it in there before he was late and he's like, oh, I can throw it there. Chase Garber doesn't have that kind of arm. Now, he is very mobile, and just looking at him from years before, just something about him that I don't know. But if we're talking about, look, man, you've already put this perfectly in place. So we're already starting out with a bang. Remember, I already said Cinderella and chaos. So this would be Cinderella. So I guess with Cal Golden Bear, I'm not even going to say what I think you are probably going to do for the conference championship. We'll just talk about that later. But maybe that's the Cinderella. I got one I know you're going to disagree with, and I kind of second guess it myself now too. I might flip these schools, but I'm looking at their schedule and thinking, man, this team's going to win a lot of games. I've got Washington at 2. Look. Okay.
Dude.
Hear me out, okay?
What is it with you today and these teams with the QB controversy? Neither of these teams have a quarterback.
Hey, man, look. Where they don't have a quarterback, they have everything else. Now, they have like 4 or 5 running backs right now that can go out and compete pretty much anywhere. They got Puka Nacua at receiver, man. Puka Nacua, I can't wait for the subtitles to get a hold of that. Puka Nacua. He's one of the better receivers in college football, too. He's going to be a sleeper guy in my college football, fantasy football rankings when those come out later in the season. And they're pretty much revamping to make their offense safe. They're getting a new offensive coordinator, Jonathan Donovan. He's going to come in and put in a new pro-style offense. It looked like they were probably a pro-style last year, but it was actually more of like just a spread concept. Now they're going to be pro-style and run the ball with these running backs. It really don't matter who is playing quarterback for them because
I just can't get behind this. I really can't. I mean, you're bringing in a team that went 4-5 in league play last year.
That's true.
And then they lost a bunch of starters on both sides of the ball, including their quarterback that went in the second round of the NFL draft. And then they brought in a new coach and an offensive coordinator that are unproven, Jimmy Montlake and Jonathan. There's just a bunch of question marks surrounding this program. I don't know I really can't tell you what your thought philosophy is to have this team better than California. I don't understand it.
Jimmy Lake has been a part of Chris Peterson's program since he got the job. So there's continuity. He's new, but he's not. He's been there, and the players actually voted for him. So that's another thing. Again, stability. I'm not saying he's one of the best coaches in the Pac-12. He's not. But he is a guy that has continuity with his team. That he knows his team. It's not really going to be that much of an overhaul. Again, that running back room is going to help them out tremendously. If we know anything from teams like Alabama, of course, they don't recruit anywhere like Alabama.
Okay, so what do you have Washington's record as overall in the conference?
So here's the funny thing, all right? I have Washington's overall record 9-3. Because look at this.
Man,
this is surprising. Sacramento State, Utah State, Oregon State, Utah. That's a toss-up for me. That could be a loss right there. Arizona, which is going to be a trash team. I have them edging Cal. Stanford, Colorado, and Wazoo. Would you disagree with? I know. Well, one you'll disagree with is Cal, obviously.
Okay, so what you think that with a first-year quarterback, new coach, new coordinator, you think they're going to march down to Cal in a late-season game that's going to have major implications, and you think they're going to win a road game? You think that this first-year starter QB at this program is going to go down to a great defense and a proven coach and team in Cal, and you think they're going to win that game?
I don't know. Herm Edwards did it with Jayden Daniels, a true freshman.
Yeah, Herm Edwards is a lot more proven than Jimmy Motley.
No, look, he's proven, but he hasn't coached in college football in 30 years.
You can't say this
Dude
on
doesn't
one
know
tangent,
anything about college football
and then
anymore.
you can't go and say that Arizona State's going to be good next year, which I know you think.
I definitely
Arizona State
think that.
is going to be good next
I
year.
definitely
so
think
you got to
Arizona
give
State's
Herm
gonna be
Edwards
good.
some love. You got to give him some love.
Look. To be fair, I have Cal at 3, and I really debated putting Cal at number 2, just because I feel like Cal has the opportunity to do some things, and I really like Chase. I really like Justin Wilcox. I don't like Chase Garber.
You got to look at upside when you're looking at these teams. Like the reason I have Cal as high as I do is they've got an elite upside. Like, what is Washington's upside this year? They're not going to compete. There's a 0% chance that Washington wins the Pac-12 North this year. There's
No.
a 0%
I don't have a chance for them to win. I don't think they're going to win it.
I understand what you're saying, but I'm just saying, like, this is hurting my mind that you think that Washington's going to be a 9-win team this year.
Well, again, think about this. Let me read your wins again. Sacramento State, Utah State, Oregon State. I have Arizona. I have Stanford, Colorado, and Wazoo. Even if I took out Utah and Cal for you, they're still winning 8 games. Like, see what I'm saying?
I have Washington at 6-6, 4-5 in the conference. I have their losses to Michigan, Oregon, Utah, Cal, USC, and Colorado.
Not Colorado. There's no, with Carl Durrell, we'll get into this later. You're talking about a team that has no quarterbacks.
I think Colorado's going to be trash.
They're going to be off, and you think they're going to lose to Washington.
Washington's an unproven team. So for you to assume that they're going to win all of these games with a bunch of first-year coaching staff and first-year players littered around their team, no team like that ever takes care of business against the teams that they're supposed to. That never happens. They will drop one of these games to these trash lower-tier Pac-12 opponents because this is what the Pac-12 does.
This is exactly what the Pac-12 does.
They suck. They beat up on each other and they suck.
This is exactly what the Pac-12 does. So this, again,
even Cal or like one of these teams that's going to be prominent in the conference will drop a game that they're not supposed to. We saw Utah go to USC last year and drop that game.
Oh, yeah.
And we saw Oregon go to Arizona State and drop that game. This is what these teams in the Pac-12 do. They drop games that they're not supposed to drop.
So this is why I'm telling you there's a chance that Washington could be erroneously good. And I don't mean good. I just mean the record looks better than they actually are. I think what would happen is if they did win 9 games, they're going to get a better bowl and get exposed by somebody. And this is usually what happens.
I can't even imagine if they were to play someone out of the SEC. They'd get thrashed.
They would get destroyed. But, dude, to be honest, there's like 2 teams in the Pac-12 that would not get thrashed by. I mean, fortunately, I don't think USC is going to get to see Alabama this year, so we won't know that. But I think, and, you know, Colorado is playing Texas A&M in A&M.
Yeah, that's
going to be bad.
That's going to be good. That's going to be a good game for your Kellen Mond narrative. That's going to be a great one. That's one where you'll go to the tape and Kellen Mond's going to put up 55 points. You'll be like, this kid, hey, that's going to be a game that's going to boost the Heisman candidacy.
Yeah, and everybody's going to think Kellen Mond's like the Heisman guy because of Colorado.
Because you're looking at his 500 yards and 5 touchdowns.
All right, so I have Cal at 3, and I tell you what, I will change everything that I just had right now because, again, it is a Pac-12, and I can't say for definite what will happen. I'm just gonna I'll give you Cal at 2, and I'll probably slide. Man, this is okay, folks. For you watching, I implore you to go to the Pac-12. Look, we've done the ACC. That was relatively easy. It's Clemson and everybody else, maybe Virginia Tech and North Carolina. This. Not so much. There's literally not
the Pac-12
alpha
is a
team.
Nightmare. The Pac-12 is a literal nightmare.
There is no alpha team. So this is really tough. So you just kind of like throwing at stars. You got to look at the schedule, who they're playing, where they're playing, account for chaos, and then just throw something in the air and hope it doesn't stink. For instance, I got Stanford at 4. Stanford was near the bottom of the Pac-12 in the North last year. I got their wins as William and Mary, Arizona, USC, Oregon State, Colorado, BYU, and Wazoo. The loss is Notre Dame.
Whoa, did I hear USC in there?
Yeah, they're playing USC.
You think they're going to beat USC?
Yeah, I think. Okay, so here's the funny thing, and I'll explain this a little bit too because I did this on purpose because of chaos. In the name of chaos, I already did it having Washington too. All right, folks. Look, I have them losing to Notre Dame, Washington, Cal, Oregon, beating USC, and losing to UCLA for some dumb reason.
I mean, that would be pretty on brand.
That would be on brand. So this is why I did that, because I have a feeling that we're going to be watching a game and everybody's going to be going, yeah, USC, man. You know, even if they have a good and admirable game against USC. Let's say for some freaky reason USC beats Alabama game 1. That's not
I mean,
they would be on the top of college football just because you beat Alabama, right?
You have, and also USC's got that name recognition.
Yeah, they're the blue bloods, right? Will Ferrell went there. All right, if they go they're going to go to Stanford, and everybody's like, yeah, USC's going to destroy this team. Whatever.
If they trot in there 4-0 with a win over Alabama, then that makes your case a lot better for just some absolute chaos happening.
I don't know if I'll finish watching college football at that.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense based off of what we've seen these Pac-12 teams just absolutely shoot themselves in the foot when they need to win the most.
Absolutely. And the thing is, with Stanford, it's crazy because Coach Shaw is one of those guys that I really like. I respect him. It's hard to recruit to Stanford. It's an academically prestigious school, as well as at one point, Jim Harbaugh resurrected this team. Shaw took it on and kept it going. They've had some really great players. Andrew Luck, CMC, some really great players. Arcega-Whiteside, you should know about that.
Yikes.
You should know about all that.
Yikes.
Hey, he was good in college.
Hey, JJ's going to have a lot better of a year this year.
I think so, too.
I think that JJ Arcega-Whiteside will have a lot better of a year this year. He'll prove a lot of the doubters wrong. I really like him.
Now, I'm thinking, though, there's a few schools in the Pac-12 right now. We'll go through it, too. I know Faxon has a lot of opinions on that, and I do, too, rightfully so. I think that there's going to be a lot of teams and a lot of coaches, even some of the better coaches, that have this is your do-or-die season. Like, for David Shaw, if he doesn't win more than 7 games this season.
Yeah, you got to think, like, this was his last year was his first losing season at the program.
And it's weird.
He's been at the program at 9 years, and now he has 1 losing season, and all of a sudden you're like, is this guy on the hot seat?
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where you have coaches just that are absolutely horrible for the programs for the bar that their programs have been set at, and they still aren't on the hot seat, like Jimbo Fisher.
Derek Mason.
And these people aren't on the hot seat, but he has 1 losing season, and like you said, it's pretty much impossible to recruit people to Stanford. You got to have a 4.0 to get in there.
And so, for me, looking at David Shaw, being as successful as he is, I think the new age era of coaches having to be above and beyond good has kind of hurt him. And if he doesn't have a successful season now, I think there's a chance that
it's really going to rely on if Davis Mills can have a good year.
Davis Mills is going to be the real deal, man.
I think he's a great player as well, but he's got to stay on the field and he's got to live up to his potential for them to be good. I actually have Stanford going 8-4 and 6-3 in the conference. I have their losses to USC, Notre Dame, Oregon, and Cal. And I say that with hesitation because I know for a fact that they're going to drop a game. They will drop a game that they're not supposed to lose. And they will probably end up in that 7-5 range.
And I have 7-5 because, like I said, I had Notre Dame, Washington, Cal, UCLA, and Oregon. I think the redemption for the football guys is that if you beat USC when they're riding high, because everybody's going to be all about them, you got to lose to UCLA.
I think that if
there's
any team that just would get a totally undeserved win like that, it would be a Chip Kelly-led team. He's just the worst.
Yeah, I know, man. Moving on, I got Oregon State at 5. And honestly, folks, when you're looking at this, when you get into the bottom of these conferences, for most conferences, it's kind of the same. But for the Pac-12 specifically, they're really bad. And this season is no exception. So it's kind of like at this point. But I've got Oregon State, at 5. There's only 6 teams per side.
Yeah, I have them at 5 as well, and I have them winning 5 games.
I have them 4-8, man. I got their wins at Colorado State, Portland State, Wazoo, Arizona. Listen to that. People talk about Clemson.
They play Portland
Colorado State with Steve Adazio as the new head coach, former Boston College head coach. Portland State, Wazoo, and Arizona.
I just want to throw a hypothetical out here for the satire. Clemson plays their starters for all 60 minutes against Portland State. Over or under 125 points?
Clemson's, make that the question of the night.
All right, I will.
Make that the question of the night. I think Clemson's third string is probably Portland State's level. And look, that's no disrespect to Portland State. But Portland State should not be playing this team. But for Oregon State, traditionally, they're not very good. They've had like 1 or 2 years. Now, they did have Jake Luton, quarterback. He went on to the NFL. He's actually pretty good. He was surprisingly good. But the team was not. Jonathan Smith, head coach. Tristan Gebbia from Nebraska was a bust. Chance Nolan, he has a chance to come in at another one-liner, another punch. He has a chance to come in and maybe take the job, but they really don't have any stability anywhere. So I can't really see them doing it. And then at 6, I have Washington State. And folks, the reason why I have Washington State at 6th in the conference is because we like to get infatuated with Mike Leach. Everybody thinks about Mike Leach and how they at one point were a playoff caliber team, and rightfully so. They were pretty good. He's been the quarterback whisperer. Every guy, Luke Falk, Anthony Gordon. You've even had Gardner Minshew with the stash, old Uncle Rico. He's made those guys good. Defense has always been kind of bad. The year before, 2018, the defense was pretty good. He's gone. You have to remember, before Mike Leach, Washington State was awful. They were butt.
This is going to
be butt again.
It's going to be a disaster class for Washington State this year. I have them last in the entire conference as a whole, at 3-9, 1-8 in the conference. You just saw last year, if you watch it, and I'm an avid Mike Leach supporter, so I watched every Washington State football game I could for the last 5 years, and I will watch Mississippi State intently this year. There was no talent on that team last year at all.
None.
The fact that they got 6 wins was an absolute miracle, and it really goes to show how Leach's offenses can just keep you in the game no matter how great the talent disparity is. And that defense last year is one of the worst defenses I've ever seen in a Division
Tell
I
them about
program.
the 60-70 game.
They were winning a game 49-17 in the third quarter. Anthony Gordon put up 8 touchdowns in a game and lost. Like the fact that this happens at a program that was considered a playoff contender, and I think that Washington State probably plays in the college football playoff if there is not a blizzard that day and for the Apple Cup in Pullman, Washington. This team had a Heisman candidate. And I really just don't. I really don't know. But Washington State is going to be in the gutter for a long time. There's no possible way to recruit out there in Pullman. No one wants to live in Pullman, Washington. No. And you saw that even with Washington State. I think they ended up going 12-2 that season that they were contenders for the playoffs.
Yeah, they did.
They won their bowl game and they went 12-2. They were 11-1 up until the Apple Cup. And they after a 12-2 season, they're 9th in the Pac-12 in recruiting after they win 11 games. It's just impossible to recruit
nobody
out
wants
there.
to play there.
No one wants to play out there.
Unless you're a quarterback.
And Oregon dominates. Oregon dominates the recruiting, and Washington dominates the recruiting. So I think that you're going to see
USC stealing.
Washington State will be a bottom feeder of the Pac-12 I really don't know when it would end. I don't know when they're going to be able to recruit. They're going to be a bottom feeder for forever at this point, unless they get some innovative hire.
I completely agree. And look, I like Nick Rolovich, head coach. He's a new head coach. He was at UNLV at one point, and he was a new head coach at Hawaii. And, of course, he produced Cole McDonald, who went to my Titans. But he ended up, he's one of those guys, they're trying to get some continuity. It's not the exact same. Mike Leach runs a true air raid, whereas Rolovich runs a run and shoot. So you're still going to have a quarterback that throws for 5,000 yards. But it's different, and Nick Rolovich doesn't have the experience nor really anything that Mike Leach has. Now, Mike Leach does rub people wrong. Obviously there's some stuff already going on with him down at Mississippi State. But, you're essentially rebuilding from the very bottom because, again, Faxon just mentioned they were not good last year, and they're going to be even worse.
They were 11th in the recruiting in Pac-12
and you're the new head coach? You're trying to tell people to come to this school that's going to be perpetually bad.
And you're I don't know what the recruiting pitch is to come out to Washington State at that point. You saw, they're 11th in Pac-12 in recruiting. You don't have any case to bring these players in from the Pacific Northwest.
No.
What is the pull? There's no pull.
None.
You're not going to be able to recruit out there, and for that reason.
Folks, I want to thank you guys for watching with us. Appreciate you sticking with us. Of course, we're talking Pac-12 football. Earlier, we talked about Barrett Carter signing with the Clemson Tigers. If you're a Clemson fan, go back and watch that. We also talked about Talia Tagovailoa transferring from Alabama to Maryland. Now we're in the Pac-12. So we're going to be talking about the Pac-12 South now. I just gave my picks, and I think we were a little bit crazy different on that one. I got Oregon winning that one. You got Cal, I think.
Yes, I had Cal winning the Pac-12 North, but I did have Oregon in second.
I think the South is going to be vastly easier to do just because more of the teams are comparable and they're not as good.
I agree. I definitely agree with that.
Let's go ahead and talk about the Pac-12 South. I've got USC
I
starting
also have USC winning.
at number 1.
I have USC winning it.
I have their wins at New Mexico, Arizona State, Utah, Cal, Arizona, Colorado, Washington, UCLA, Notre Dame. Actually, let me take out Cal because I said Cal is going to beat them and lose to UCLA.
Okay, so what do you have the record as?
So I have that record would make them
10-2 or 9-3. I think
that would make them
10-2
10-2
with one loss in the conference.
with one loss in the conference.
And
Alabama,
we're pretty on par because
Yeah.
I have them. I have them at 11-1,
Okay.
and I have them at 9-0 in the conference. And I know I'm sitting here right now, and I'm telling myself they're going to lose a conference game. There will be a conference game that USC loses.
they're not going to beat Oregon.
I'm just going to put on here that they're going to win every conference game because they are better than every team on their schedule.
Except Oregon.
But they're gonna. We're gonna disagree on that. I do think that USC will lose to Alabama and then win the rest. That's
yeah.
what I'm gonna predict. But I think that they will definitely drop a game in the conference, and I'll look back and I'll be like, why didn't I just put them at 10-2? Like, why didn't I do it? But
And that's what I'm saying.
I'm gonna
I
say
think Oregon's
11-1.
probably
I'm gonna
Look,
say 11-1.
I think Keaton Slovis is probably the first or second best quarterback in the Pac-12 right now.
Oh, he's definitely the first.
I
would say he's top 5 in the country.
would say he's top 5 in the country, but I think there's another quarterback,
Which would be who are you referencing?
Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels at Arizona State is legitimately one of the best quarterbacks. I mean, if you look at him statistically,
I think you can make an argument that the top 5 in the country are Lawrence, Fields, Howell, Slovis, and Daniels in that order. I think that that's a legitimate argument.
and it's funny because Florida State had this guy, but they let Sam Howell dictate everything, and he was like, well, I'm just going to go to Arizona State. And then Sam Howell was like, well, I'm going to go to North Carolina. And then they got left with James Blackman again. So things happen like that. But
just shot themselves in the foot.
I really like Keaton Slovis. I mean, he was able to take out JT Daniels, JT Shrout, Jack Sears. He had all those guys ousted. And everybody goes, well, yeah, Jake Fromm did that, but Jake Fromm wasn't that good. Yeah, well, see, Keaton Slovis is actually legitimately good.
Keaton Slovis, when you watch him
He is
on film,
ridiculous.
When you watch him on film, he's got the arm talent to make every single throw on the football field. His pocket awareness is way too good for him to be 18 years old, which he is. And he's just like, you look at him playing, you're like, this is a guy that's going to be a first-round pick in the NFL draft.
Yeah,
That's
sure.
what he just looks exactly like that.
And the thing about him is that's crazy is I don't want to do too many comparisons because we know why Clemson does what they do sometimes. You know, Trevor Lawrence started as the backup to Kelly Bryant and eventually beat him. But everybody kind of knew why. I'm not going to go on there and talk about that, but everybody kind of knew why. Keaton Slovis was like third string. Definitely third string, and nobody even really knew about him.
There was questions whether he was going to redshirt.
And Graham Harrell was like telling everybody, look, this guy's legit. Just wait on it. And we saw it. So I think he has a good chance of being really good. I do like them. I do think they're going to probably get hammered by Alabama just because Alabama's going to be coming back angry. And they always get, they're going to play somebody that they're overmatched game 1. It was Duke last year, Louisville the year 4. Nobody cares. But I do think this USC team is better. No, I don't think the hype is real. I don't think they're as good as everybody thinks they're going to be. But, I do think they're going to be good. Again, you had them at 11-1. I had them at 10-2. I think there's chances to do it. Now, the one big question mark is Clay Helton. This is a guy that's been on the hot seat, then he was off. He was on the hot seat, he was off. Of course, he was the guy that was chosen over Ed Orgeron. I guarantee you they probably hate that now. I think it's one of those deals where if he underperforms again, he is going to be on the hot seat and probably ousted because everybody thought he was going to be fired this year and somehow avoided it. But you got to think just 2 years ago, these guys were playing in, what was that, the Cotton Bowl? No.
Sugar Bowl, I want to say.
Sugar Bowl.
It was one of the two. It was either the Sugar Bowl or the
I think it was,
Cotton
it was the Sugar Bowl.
It was the Sugar Bowl.
Playing Penn State. And everybody's like, man, USC should have got in. They had Sam Darnold. Man, they should have got in. And then the next year, it's just kind of like things are falling apart. They had injuries. You had guys like Michael Pittman.
Season. Total regression.
But I just don't know. But I've got them there. And I'll segue this into number 2 because, again, the quarterback play is very important. I think Jaden Daniels for Arizona State, I have them at number 2 in the conference in South. I've got their overall at 9-3. I don't quite think that they're a 10-plus win team yet.
I have them at 10-2 at number 2 in the conference. And I have their losses to USC and Oregon, and I do have Arizona State as one of the two teams I have beating California. I think that they're going to win that game at home.
I actually have that too. So I have their wins at Northern Arizona, UNLV, Oregon State, UCLA, Colorado, Wazoo. I have them beating Cal, so we were right on that. Utah and Arizona. I have their losses to USC, Oregon, and BYU. I just think BYU.
You think BYU gets them in that, or is that
That's
the
the early game.
It's the early game.
That's like game 1 or 2.
So do you think BYU gets them in
I
that
do.
early
I
game?
think BYU's good. They play a lot of Pac-12 teams. They might as well be in the Pac-12. But I think they're going to catch one of the teams, and I think the most vulnerable to do that would probably be Arizona State.
I could definitely see that happening.
Again, I'm a fan of Jaden Daniels. Folks, this guy's like 6'4". He might weigh 180. But he is super accurate, super smart with the football. Doesn't have a cannon, but good enough arm, and he's very mobile too. So I like him. Plus the Herm Edwards factor. We talked about that earlier. I know I kind of made like a facetious joke about Herm Edwards not being in college football for a long time because he hasn't been. But he's still a coach with a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge, and he has a really good staff around him. And he's really up on using metrics and electronics and all the latest data and technology. So they're one of the schools that have a lot of stuff. Plus, they are the pit of Pac-12. They ruin it for whoever's good every time.
It was Oregon last.
It was Oregon last year.
slipping
It was
last year.
USC the year before that. They beat Utah. I mean, they're just one of those teams that just.
They're a pest, but
They're a pest.
I think they're actually going to be good this
But I
year,
actually think they're going to be good and back it up this year.
This will be their one year where they're going to win these games, and you're going to be like, okay, they're a good football team. They can win these games.
That's right. All right, so this third selection, and folks, we're going to try to wrap this up. I don't want to keep you guys too long. I know it's Tuesday night. You're bored, so which you should be watching, but I don't want to hold you guys too long. But my third pick, and this is kind of funny, I think you have them at 3, and that is Utah.
Yeah, I've got Utah there, and it's just that they lost so much, but
And you
the
have
coaching,
Kyle Whittingham.
It's the coaching, and I've been an outspoken at Kyle Whittingham being a terrible, terrible coach in these big games.
In big games, he's awful.
But he knows how to win like 7 or 8
And they're
games.
always a tough out. When you play Utah, they're like that big physical team that you just hate to play.
They're gonna win the trenches battle, and they're gonna win it in pretty much every game they play. And I have them at 8-4, 5-4 in the conference.
I have them at 9-3.
Okay,
Just because I have
that's fair.
BYU,
That's
Montana
completely fair.
State,
That's completely fair.
Wyoming, Cal, Wazoo, UCLA, Arizona, Oregon State, and Colorado with losses to Washington, Arizona State, and USC. Now look at this. There's a reason why I don't. There's 2 reasons why I don't have Utah higher than 3. The first reason, you just said it. Actually, there's 3 reasons. The first reason you just said it is because Whittingham, while he is a great coach and I respect him a lot, terrible in big games. The second thing is they did lose a lot on both sides of the ball. You lost your number 1 running back, who was a monster. I love Zach. You lost Tyler Huntley at quarterback. You do keep Brentley Queef at tight end. You lost all your defensive linemen, your linebackers. I mean, they had the top of the line guys, Bradley and you had some really good guys.
They were really a better team than Oregon last year on paper. They should have won
The
that
third
game.
reason why I have Utah at 3. Jake Bentley is their starting quarterback.
Yeah, that's just like that's one of those things that
Jake Bentley is going to go into Utah and be their starting quarterback.
He can't be trusted. He cannot be trusted.
He cannot, because on one game, and look, okay, let's say this, all right? You beat BYU, and then you turn around and you're playing Arizona State.
There's games where Jake Bentley looks like a rock star.
Yes,
there
exactly.
are. And then there's
Clemson
games
2019,
and then there's games where he looks like he doesn't even belong on a Division I football field.
Right.
He's the most inconsistent player I've ever laid eyes on, and that's why I can't put Utah any higher than 3rd.
I can't do it,
I'm totally
man.
in the same boat as you.
And they don't have any experience behind him. Nobody that's really on his level. He's a 5th-year senior.
They lost
even
an
though
NFL
he's only
running
19
back
years
as well.
old and should have been a senior last year.
They lost Moss to the NFL, and absolutely.
Zach Moss is one of the best running backs they've had in a long time.
It's just
I can't give them the nod, but I will say that they're still going to be really good, and I have them at 3 in the conference. 9-3 overall, 6-3 in the conference.
Yeah, I think 8-9 wins seems fair. I have 8-4, 5-4 in the conference. I have them losing to. This is where we differ. We both have UCLA winning one of these weird games, and I have UCLA getting Utah. So I think that UCLA is going to get. They're going to get one of these games.
Yeah.
And we have them on different teams, but we are on the same page that DTR and Chip Kelly will lead USC to one of these.
Okay,
UCLA
and this
to one
is
of
where
these
we're
fluke
going
wins.
because the ultimate bust job of a coach
Chip Kelly
is at number 4, the UCLA Bruins. led by Chip Kelly, former Oregon head coach, former San Francisco head coach, former Philly Eagles head coach. Faxon,
Just ridiculous.
how you feel about that, bro?
Just put the franchise in the gutter.
I have them at being better than they should be, but it's because they have a terrible out-of-conference that's going to boost them up and give them a couple more wins. They have 3 guaranteed wins in New Mexico State, Hawaii, and San Diego State.
SDSU might be able to push them.
No, that ain't happening. Rocky, look, San Diego State had Rocky Long as their head coach. He quit. Well, he got fired, and then they brought up the defensive coordinator to be the new head coach. And then Rocky Long came in and was like, well, I can be the offensive line coach. You know how weird dynamic that is?
It literally makes no sense.
It makes 0 sense. They have no continuity. They have nothing going on right there, right in San Diego State.
I have 7-5 for
I can't
UCLA.
do it. I have 8-4, so we're right there.
Yeah, I can't see
Right
them getting 8, but I think 7-5, 4-5 in the conference. I have them losing to Stanford, Arizona State, Oregon State, weirdly enough, USC, and Cal. I think Oregon State might be able to get them in one of those games just because UCLA is one of those teams that's so up and down where you don't know, like you literally, I would hate being a UCLA fan because you don't know what you're getting going into these games. You could go in and you could lose to a Division III program and then you could go take down Clemson. That's just the kind of team that they are.
Yeah, but when was the last time that UCLA was legitimately good?
Yeah, they haven't been good in a while. I mean,
maybe Carl Durrell years. That was 2003. And we're going to talk about Carl Durrell a little bit later because he is a head coach for another team in the Pac-12 now. But
their highlight of the last decade was that comeback with Josh Rosen.
Josh Rosen over Texas A&M, but
yeah,
I'm not surprised about that
comeback.
because it was Kevin Sumlin.
That's their highlight of their entire decade of their program.
Right.
That comeback in the regular season.
I think they're going to be good because they do return a really good and talented quarterback, Dorial Thompson-Robinson. The only problem with him is that he can't stay healthy. They don't really have any other talent around him. They lost their running back Kelly to the NFL as well. And if he gets hurt, you got Colson Yankoff as a backup.
Just, they're not going to
And Parker McQuarrie, who's a true freshman. So I don't know about that. And then you have, again, the worst bust job of a head coach in Chip Kelly ever.
6 to 8 wins.
So
fourth in the South seems fair.
Yeah, and it's so strange because they can be a 4-win team, but they can also be an 8-win team. I don't know.
It's just one of those things where you never know what you're going to get. And then the last 2 in the conference are just Colorado and Arizona. Both of those teams are going to suck.
Exactly, and we're going to segue into that because Arizona is next. I have them 1-8 in conference, 3-9 overall, with wins over Hawaii, Portland State, and Colorado. Again, Portland State, man, they are the punching bag.
Hey, they're
Pac-12.
they're getting their bag.
They're getting some checks, man.
They're probably getting $500K.
That is their stimulus.
Yeah, they're getting paid to go get embarrassed by terrible Pac-12 teams.
That's right, and they will not have to cut their baseball program or their lacrosse program or their women's tennis or softball because of that. So kudos
Shout out
to
the
doing
Portland
that.
State football team.
I have them with their losses to Stanford, Texas Tech, because I really like what Matt Wells is doing there. I think he's going to be able to change that around a little bit. UCLA, USC, Washington, Oregon, Utah, Arizona State, and Oregon State. Look, Kevin Sumlin was probably unjustly fired at Texas A&M because I think it was a lateral move, and they paid more money to get Jimbo Fisher, who did the exact same thing in the first year. Second year wasn't much better. It was actually worse. Granted, they did have an extremely difficult schedule last year. Now, he's had to do. He already messed up when he came to Arizona. You had Khalil Tate, who was a quarterback that everybody was like, wow, this guy could be a Heisman guy. And then he broke his foot, and then he tried to make him a pocket passer. Khalil Tate's not a pocket passer. In fact, he's probably playing. Isn't he playing receiver for the Eagles now for you?
Say it again. Yeah, Khalil Tate, he did sign with the Eagles as a wide receiver.
Why would you not run the train of the guy being extremely good athlete? You're going to make him a pocket passer, something he's not comfortable with, and it didn't work.
I mean, he volunteered to position switch. I don't think that this guy. I remember watching that game. I remember watching a game a couple years ago that Khalil Tate had 300 rushing yards in. He's an extremely talented player.
Yes, that was against Oregon.
He had 300 rushing yards as and I quote, quarterback in that game. But they did a terrible job of utilizing such a talented player. Like they definitely could have won.
And
and their defense wasn't entirely atrocious over these last 2 years either.
Scooby. Anybody remember Scooby? He was really good, man. One of the better linebackers. But
Kevin Sumlin
and now
trying to make him something he's not.
Yeah, and now it's the Grant Gunnell era. He's probably more of what in line with what Kevin Sumlin wants as far as the quarterback there. But he's nowhere near as talented or explosive as Khalil Tate was, so that we'll see what happens. And look, Arizona was not good under Rich Rod. That's why they got rid of Rich Rod. They thought they were going to do something better with getting Kevin Sumlin. Kevin Sumlin was like last on the list, but nobody, like Wazoo, nobody wants to go to Arizona and coach anymore. Not anymore, but, they were not good before they get him. Your first year, what was that, 5-7. Your second year, 4-8. That's not good. This is a season that if he doesn't win, which he's not going to, but I'm just going to say, if he doesn't win, this is it for Kevin Sumlin at Arizona. And that's terrible because, they're at one point, look, what was this, 2019? They started 4-1. Everybody thought that they were just going to run through the Pac-12. It was like, wow, Arizona's good. They lost the last 7 games in a row.
Just literally embarrassing.
So I don't know. They're doing the whole building the A thing now. You see all these schools referring to like gimmicks and words and slogans and hashtags on social media, but it doesn't start there. It starts with you as a coach and you getting the right players and instilling the right kind of, mentality in these players. It doesn't start with your social media because your social media is not going to get you a win. Sure, it might get you a win against Hawaii or Portland State, but it's not going to get you a win against anybody serious. So I think this is the end for Kevin Sumlin. I have them at 1-8 in the conference, 3-9 overall. And that leaves one last team, the stinker of the conference, the team that I think is going to get skunked in the conference, and that's Colorado. And I have their one win against Colorado State, which is game 1. Again, Steve Adazio down there now. I don't trust that. I have their loss to everyone else. Fresno State, TAMU, which is Texas A&M, Oregon, Arizona, UCLA, Arizona State, everybody. It goes to everybody, right? It's tough because you have a new head coach in Carl Durrell. He came over from as the head coach, as the receivers coach and quarterback passing game down at Miami Dolphins. And he was a former head coach at UCLA from 2003 to 2007. Didn't have a bad record. In fact, all 5 years that he was there, they made a bowl game. They won 4 of them. So he wasn't bad. He ended up parlaying that into an NFL job. It is what it is. But now you're taking over for a team that wasn't good last year. You don't have a quarterback at all with any snaps. None of them have any snaps. No passes, no attempts, no nothing. Because you lost Steven Montez to the NFL. And by the way, your head coach that you had during a rebuild that was saying he was going to be rebuilding, and Mel Tucker, defensive coordinator at Georgia, went over to Colorado, stunk it up. Now he's the head coach at, scandal-ridden Michigan State. So I think this is the rebuild of all rebuilds. It's probably worse than Georgia Tech. They had Kurt Roper as their quarterback coach and offensive coordinator. That's all I got to say. Kurt Roper.
This team is going to be so bad. I can't even express it. Arizona and Colorado, Washington State, those 3 teams.
I feel so bad.
I think you could set the combined over/under for wins at 6.
Fair.
Washington State, Arizona, and Colorado.
So what did I have Colorado? 1 win, Arizona 3.
And you had Washington State with 2 or 3.
Yeah, so that's fair.
Like 6.5 for those 3 teams combined?
That's fair. And the thing is, the crazy thing about this too is that I'm going to get bitten in the foot because Colorado is going to probably be that team that bites somebody when they're not supposed to.
I was going to say that I had on my predictions, I think I had them getting Stanford. I have them getting someone because it's just one of those things that's bound to happen because the Pac-12 is so inconsistent. No, I had them getting UW. I have them at home getting Washington.
Yeah.
So it could definitely happen.
I don't know, man. And again, with that said, that brings the 2 winners from my picks, Oregon and USC, with Oregon beating USC in the conference championship game. I think you have Cal and
I have Cal and USC.
Who do you have winning that game?
I've got the Golden Bears taking home the Pac-12 crown over USC. And my thought philosophy behind that is I have USC going into this game to where they could be in a playoff position, and the Pac-12 is not making the playoffs, so the underdog's going to win.
No,
because we saw last year Utah's going in. If Utah wins, they're in. They blow it.
To be fair, I will say this. If either USC or Oregon only lose their out-of-conference game, because you got to think about this.
They would both be
in. Because the reason why is that, of course, a 2-loss Pac-12 team is not going to get in. That's unfair, but it is what it is, folks. If let's say if Oregon loses to Ohio State but runs the table against everyone else in the Pac-12, and that includes a ranked USC, they're getting into the playoffs because you lost to a team again, Ohio State, that's looked at as going to be one of the top 2 teams. I mean, I think Ohio State's it's either Clemson or Ohio State winning the championship.
I'll just put it like this: USC picked the wrong year to play Alabama.
They picked the absolute wrong year to play Alabama.
This is the worst year that they could have possibly played Alabama. If they would have just picked a cupcake instead, you could look at a scenario where USC is going into the conference. They could be undefeated.
Yes.
They could be a top 2 seed in the
Absolutely.
college football playoff.
And the thing is, the crazy thing about USC is that even though they are playing Alabama, as long as it's not a blowout, and this goes for Ohio State, Oregon too, because I do have a feeling that one might get out of hand. Although Alton Stadium is really, really loud.
They
and they
really
do
need that
really
game
well
to be
up there.
competitive.
Shout out to everybody that lives in Eugene. But I think Oregon has a better chance at beating Ohio State, which sounds crazy, than USC beating Alabama game 1. Not gonna happen.
I wouldn't disagree with that because Alabama is historically elite in these early. Remember that early season game against Clemson? What was it, 2009?
Oh my gosh, that's what started it. 2008.
2008. That was just an absolute thrashing. Like Alabama's track record, and credit to Nick Saban, he does a fantastic job in these kickoff type games.
Yeah.
No matter the competition, Alabama is always prepared for these game 1. So
right.
I don't see a scenario where USC can beat them. I hope for their case that they can compete because if it's a blowout, it's not going to look good on their resume come playoff time.
And you got to look too. You got to think about how many times Alabama's played. Their national footprint, and of course USC is too. But obviously the last decade or more, Alabama has they have moved over USC. Obviously, their footprint is very wide. So I think that game's going to be in Texas. That's Alabama's like playground. So. It sucks for USC to have to play them, whereas Oregon's getting the benefit of if they play. And honestly, all of this is just like speculation because we don't know if the Pac-12 is even going to get to play. There's been a lot of stay-at-home mandates, a lot of coronavirus stuff going on with them that they're not sure that they're going to even play a season. Any of the schools, of course, a lot of the Pac-12 is in California, so it kind of hurts the entire conference if. Oregon just had their stay-at-home extended through May 31st, and it could go again. So we'll see. But, Oregon at least gets to play Ohio State in Alton Stadium. You don't get that benefit if you're USC. You got to get all your Trojan fans to follow you out to Texas and try to outnumber Alabama's fans who are going to be rabid after last season, who thinking, oh, man, we didn't get to play in the playoffs. This is our year. So – folks, with that said, I think if one of these teams can pull off, which would be considered a big upset, either Oregon or USC, one of them can get into the playoffs. If they don't, and they don't run the table, Pac-12 is left out again. And with that said, we're at the end of the show, folks. I appreciate you watching. Of course, you can rewatch this on YouTube or listen to the podcast later on in the week. My name is Ellis Talbert. That's Facts and Childress in the back. And we'll see you next Tuesday. We'll talk about some more things. We'll see what happens around college football then at that point. But we will be talking about the Big 12 Conference. That'll be fun. The worst conference, in my opinion.
That'll be interesting.
That'll be a stinker. Have fun, folks. Have a good night, and I'll see you next Tuesday.